sort of key on us
And
before.
it's very expensive and it ain't easy to get.
'70s when Chrysler was laying down, building Japanese cars along the way. Guy that Chrysler did.
Managing partner, you should be able to afford a generator.
Rubbed his knees through that. He was like, "You wish you wouldn't thought about it for a minute."
But we
Yeah, I like to do a
talk
foreign
about
car
it.
dealership in any major city. Poof, Chrysler dealer told me.
Get one, a bigger one, 10 grand installed.
Well, you know, Spalding is
Serve,
background.
serve the important stuff.
their
Oh,
decision.
the managing partner, that's nothing.
The top guy made 43 million last year, though. He made sure he got
Pay my
his
people
money.
and all their benefits first.
Yeah, yeah, still like, well, yeah.
We're about at
Yeah.
0 hour, ain't we?
Yeah, they're like
We're going
the
by
fourth
Verizon now?
largest car maker in the world.
International building a huge plant, Wisewood.
I think so.
National Harvester you're talking about?
Well, no, right here.
I didn't realize they were still, I thought they had merged with somebody.
They're building,
That's
my
bad.
son-in-law is moving the equipment, but he's got the equipment contract. He's-
I know she's not asking where to sit at.
Good.
Ready to start,
You know, we just wanted to get here before we got in on this.
I'm Dave Logan.
That's fine.
How are you?
Dad was in National
living the
Harvester
life.
in the early 70s, so I was.
Morning, Greg.
Hey, Donna, how you doing?
Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you? I'm good, thank you.
Get me in here.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Spalding County Water and Sewage Facilities Authority regular meeting of November 20th, 2024. We're going to lead off with the invocation led by Miss Wanda Howell, followed by the pledge to the flag by Mr. Clay Davis.
Dear Father, please help us to remember to do your will as we go about the work of the Spalding County Water Authority. Please help us to remember that we are here to serve the citizens of Spalding County, and please help to remind us that the work we do here will impact generations to come. In Christ's holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge to the flag, pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is presentations. We're going to get a water model update. Did they make it through traffic? Yes, they did.
Adela's ready to go. Adela, at the podium with the microphone, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Adela Custer. I'm with Garver. Today I'll be presenting to you on the water model update that we've been doing for Spalding County Water Authority. So today we'll discuss an update of the model, the existing system overview, so how the system's performing with today's demands, and then population projections for the entire Spalding County area, and then a preliminary CIP to talk about the improvements that the system needs to meet the growth over the next 25 years. This is Benjamin Moss. He's also presenting with me today for Garver. We're going to start with the model update. So we started with the updated GIS data as the basis of the model. Joseph and Chris and the team here has put in a lot of effort to develop the GIS data and get an updated set that's up to date and accurate. And so we wanted to use that as the basis of this model. And so we used a previous model as a reference, but we really kind of built the model from scratch with this GIS data, and then just checked our assumptions based on the previous model. We also deployed pressure loggers throughout the system to gather data on system operations. So Joseph and his team deployed pressure loggers in the Griffin area, but also on the outskirts Spalding area, to understand how the tanks were floating in the system, when the pumps were kicking on, things like that. And that just helped us increase the accuracy of the model. We do this for every model we develop just to make sure that it's calibrated so that the recommendations that we provide for you guys are reflective of what's going on in your system. And then we used interview and data from the city of Griffin to set operational parameters in the model. So they operate the pumps at Harry Simmons and Still Branch manually based on tank levels. And so we couldn't really establish set points in the model because they don't have set points. So we used interviews with them to understand how they were kicking their pumps on and off, how they were operating everything. And then we kind of made some assumptions to put that into the model and make sure that it was representing what they did in real life. We compared the pressure logger data to the model and calibrated to 5% accuracy. So what you're looking at here is the model in blue and the pressure logger data in gray. And you can see it's pretty representative of what's going on in real life. And so we saw at most about 5 to 10 feet of difference, which is representative of about 2 to 3 psi typically, maybe up to 5 psi in difference. So this is a very accurate model to be able to develop your CIP from.
All right, cool. My apologies. There was an accident that shut down 285 fully, and then 75 also got bollocksed up. I'm very sorry. But yeah, Ben Moss, I lead the Garber operations in Georgia doing models. So after that, once we went in and looked at your model and then developed it out, from there we evaluated the system based off AWWA recommendations, Georgia EPD, and then also our institutional knowledge of the work that we do all over the country. So that.
So first we evaluated the system for maximum head loss gradients. With current demands, we looked at 2020 to present. And the system is very hydraulically efficient. So what we're looking for here is kind of 2 feet per 1,000 feet of head loss maximum. And that's going to be anything that's not blue or green. So your oranges and reds are above that threshold of what we typically recommend. As you can see, there's very little of that in the system. It's mostly green, it's mostly blue. The orange is on the dedicated line to Coweta, and a little bit in downtown Griffin due to the aging of the pipes and the higher friction and head loss in those pipes.
Yeah, and the big takeaway here is that loop that you built over the years has been very beneficial as you continue to grow.
Another thing we looked at was minimum pressures. So these occur along the ridgeline near Williamson Road. They're still above Georgia EPD minimum requirements though. So one thing to note about your system is that the majority of it is all in one main pressure zone. So the topography is going to have a large impact on your pressures. And so at the high ridgeline, you're going to see your minimum pressures. They're still sitting at around 36 psi though, which is sufficient for service pressures. And it really just depends on the tank level. It's not anything about the performance of your system. It's just that it's high elevation there.
And it's very common too. Most of our roads were established off of old, roads trading for Native Americans and things like that. And so those ridges end up being the roads because it's more efficient than going down than going back up. And you can only put a tank so high. So if you put the tank up on the ridge line and you wanted to provide higher pressure on the ridge line, it gets exponentially more expensive the higher that the tank goes. So there's a reasonable amount of pressure at the ridge lines, and you're there. You just want to keep monitoring it as time goes on.
The other side of that is the maximum pressures. So maximum pressures above 100 psi, which is typically our max pressure recommendation, occur around the edges of the county in low elevation areas. So on the other side, to provide pressure to your high elevation areas, you end up with higher pressures at the low elevation areas. And so this is going to be kind of on the edges of the county, closer to your water bodies and rivers. Something to do in the future might be pressure reduced zones, as convenient. If there's smaller, low elevation areas, you can isolate them and lower the pressures. It's not really needed right now, but just something to consider. Another thing we looked at was water age. So our model looks at water age and kind of predicts it, and it's relatively high at the dead ends on the edges of the county. This is extremely common for a looped system where you have the dead ends going off to 1 to 2 houses. The model's going to show high water age there because there's very little demand that's turning the water over in those pipes. So this is inevitable. It's something we see across the country. Things to do to help remediate it are to sample, which I think you guys are doing for disinfection byproducts. And as long as there's no red flags in those, then y'all are fine. And then flushing on the dead ends also helps water age.
Yeah, we usually target below 3. We really want to be below 3 days for most things, but when you get over 6, that's whenever you start to see things. But in the model, it's a model, right? So it's doing math, and we interpret it. That's part of it. So just because the model's predicting these things in this area, it doesn't mean they're actually always happening exactly like that. That's what we're looking at. So when we see where there's a large water age, where there's a lot of users at the end, then those are the ones that are more concerning to us. So.
So finally, in this section, we evaluated the finished water storage capacity relative to water demands from 2020 to now, so your current demands. For Spalding County Water Authority main zone specifically, your average demand is about 2.3 million gallons a day, which is Georgia EPD's recommended elevated storage. They don't have a requirement for it, this is just a recommendation. The existing elevated storage in your system is 2.5 million gallons, so you're kind of right at the line where your storage is exactly what Georgia EPD recommends. Heron Bay I split off separately because that area is a lower pressure zone, and so the storage kind of needs to be handled separately. The existing demand is 0.1 million gallons a day, so recommended is 0.1 million gallons. And your existing elevated storage in that area is 500,000 gallons, so that one is sufficient unless there's significant growth in that area. City of Griffin, I also evaluated separately. It sees about 0.7 million gallons a day of average demand. It has 3 million gallons of elevated storage. So that brings me to the last one, which is when the system is integrated between Spalding County Water Authority and City of Griffin, the combined storage is 5.5 million gallons, which is sufficient for the 3 million gallons of average day demand in the combined system.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add here is that because the fact that if you're going to add something new, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but if you're going to add something new, you want to consider to go ahead and add some additional storage. You want to just be targeting what you're using in an area for tank volume of that area. We'll talk a little bit more about it. All right, so in summary, your system is in really great shape. That's the big thing that we pulled out of this. Going in and evaluating, that loop is super valuable to you. Your head loss gradients are good for today. Your storage is good for today. The water age, based off what we know from the DEPs, hasn't caused much of a problem. Keep an eye on it. But here we wanted to stop and open it up for, if you had at this point, any questions about your existing system before we start moving over into future things.
Can you go back to that previous slide? So what is I may have missed it, the main zone, what does that encompass?
So it's everything in Spalding County outside of City of Griffin besides Heron Bay.
Okay. So, go back to the city of Griffin. Or actually, this is good.
Yeah.
So anywhere inside the city of Griffin, and outside of Heron Bay, it's really basically everything else on the outskirts.
Thank you.
Any other questions? To the future. All right, so population projections. So go ahead and hop in. We use the Georgia Office of Planning and Budget for the population projections as the basis for the gross estimates. And as you can see here, it's a little bit more vertical. A little bit more vertical in this corridor here, and then it's going to flatten off is what they're predicting. But for anybody that lived through 2007, 8, 9, and 10 with Office of Planning and Budget, we've been through this before. It's a guess, right? So, but it does appear as though that your population is going to flatten, at least is what they're predicting. But we are looking, we go ahead and go to the next slide. We are looking at your comprehensive plan in the areas that you're planning to grow to be strategic about where we would put those demands into the future. It looks like up in the top right corridor of Heron Bay is an area that is growing over time. And so we definitely want to keep an eye on that. And you'll see some of the projects are really about supplying water to that area. Obviously, 75 going to the east, and then going north into the 1941 corridor. Anything else you want to add there?
No, just in terms of the model, going back to the technical side, this helped us inform how to allocate the demands in the future. So if there were some of the more rural neighborhood areas that are identified as not really growth corridors, we kind of kept the demands the way they were and scaled them a little bit. But we really focused the growth and the increase in those demands in your strategic core character areas.
Yeah, and this is another thing too, is as we've increased the efficiency of different fixtures in areas too, that's a whole nother thing the new developments that are coming in are a little bit more water efficient than historical what you would be seeing. So we're using updated usage based off these demand populations for 2024. All right, so then we identified strategic growth corridors. So looking at your community compared to the other places that we're working, one of your greatest assets is your access to I-75 along 16. I think you all know that. It's kind of obvious for a lot of reasons. But we allocated a 5 NGD. We'll talk about it a little bit more. We located a big number because there's a lot of different industries like data centers and things like that that are using water in that area. And we wanted to see what would happen if they came in. And then the other one is the 1941 corridor going north towards Raceway. That area has, again, y'all are from this area. Y'all know that's a big asset for you as things continue to move to the south. We evaluated each wholesale customer. So you see Coweta County Water and Sewage Authority over there. They're kind of their own separate dedicated fee. I do a lot of work with the authority for their planning for the future, going to 2038 timeframe and then beyond to 2050. It is actually a good use of them for using this water coming from this direction. I know it doesn't 100% affect the authority itself. We did evaluate that, and what it looks like is it's just really a direct feed into that corridor. And by maintaining those valves over there, you're keeping the water moving a little better. Williamson and Zebulon going to the south, we do have a couple of improvement projects that we've identified in that corridor in order to supply that area. And then with Butts County, that really kind of rolls into the AKB section. Anything you want to add?
I would just say we applied the OPB projections, the same proportions to Williamson, Zebulon, and Butts, assuming that they're going to grow proportionally to Spalding County too.
All right, from there we combined all demands into a single projection.
Yeah, so this kind of shows that. So we have Griffin and Gray on the bottom, and that's everything within City of Griffin. And then Spalding County Water Authority is anything outside of City of Griffin, but within Spalding County.
And what's interesting there is that Griffin's not growing. It's we're not projecting any additional growth there unless it's some sort of wholesale customer or something different.
Yeah, both Spalding County and Griffin are growing slowly relative to our strategic corridor demands. So those industrial users are really going to be the thing that pushes those demands up if those ever come in. And so we allocated 3 MGD for each strategic corridor through 2034, and then in 2039 we bumped it up to 5 MGD. And then Coweta, like Ben said, we kind of talked to them about their future plans. We bumped it down in 2039 based on their contract, but we still left it there. And it really doesn't affect your system too much, and so it's not something to really stick on too much.
I will provide some color clarity for those that may be to some degree interested though. Noonan provides water to Coweta County Water and Sewage Authority. They're building a new intake on the Chattahoochee River right now, and it's expanding in that corridor. But that's on the northwest of that county. And so to provide water to the southeast corridor of Coweta County is a lot of capital investment. We're talking $200 to $300 million. So it's a lot to do that. And so they may do that depending on development that forms along the I-85 corridor on the southeast side. But right now, from the we did the 50-year master plan for them as well. They're probably going to be using that water. My guess is it'll be closer to 5. I mean, that's just it's an educated guess, but there's reasons for it. It's just complicated to get the water around there.
So we added a peaking factor to the demands. So for the Spalding County and Griffin, and then your Zebulon, Williamson, and Butts County, we applied a 1.4 peaking factor to represent your maximum day relative to average day. And then Coweta, we bumped it up with a 2 peaking factor in 2039, assuming that it might serve as some sort of emergency for them. And then the industrial or strategic growth corridors, We kept those without a peaking factor, assuming that they're gonna be non-residential, not your typical demands.
Yeah, and generally speaking, EPD recommends you wanna be like 75% capacity max day. That leaves you, some buffer, right? You don't wanna run out of water. So, that's what we're doing for that, is just making sure there's enough in there.
So, with Coweta online at the full 5, you're sitting around 10 MGD. With some strategic corridors and a little bit of growth, you're closer to 16. And then additional growth, we have you a little bit over 18 MGD.
Yeah, I'll add one more thing here too, as we talk about these bigger numbers here, the new, EPA director incoming, he was saying some things that you wouldn't necessarily hear unless you're in our industry. When he said we're committed to AI and things like that, that is, we're committed to data centers, from the water professional's perspective. So these may seem like big numbers, but they are absolutely reasonable. And we're a relatively water-rich state, right, all things considered. This area is probably the area that's been probably impacted the most by the Atlanta stuff. But as things clean up over time, it really is a corridor that's important. A lot of the fiber is already installed in a lot of these areas to provide this data access to Atlanta. So all of our clients, literally all of them, are looking and evaluating this right now.
So revisiting the storage, which I mentioned earlier, the integrated system does have that additional storage capacity for some future development. It's about 2.5 million gallons of additional storage. And so that provides a little bit of buffer. However, the Spalding County Water Authority system, if it's separated, it requires additional storage with any future corridor development. So right now you benefit from the linking with Griffin, which is a very interconnected system. So you have that additional storage capacity. For Spalding County Water Authority, if another large user or really any sort of significant user were to come in, we'd recommend additional storage.
And that's good for you to know too, as you're coordinating these people, kind of understanding where their use is gonna be, you could potentially include that. We'll talk more about that when we get into the capital portion. Hey, look at here, it's right here. All right, so, I will stop real quick. Any questions on those demand pieces specifically?
Not yet.
Not yet. It's good, save them.
How much is it gonna cost us?
What?
How much is this gonna cost us?
Hey, here we go, right?
Just
Yeah.
one comment, without the 1941 and AKB corridor development, the water usage actually decreases, according to your,
If you
Back-
take in
back up,
Coweta, you
back
take
up.
out Coweta.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
with Coweta going down,
yeah.
without AKB in 1941, there's actually a decrease in water.
That's
demand.
right. Not for the authority. Overall, for the supply, with Griffin there is, but the authority, that's what we're trying to say. See, it's directly to them. Like, their pipes are going directly to Coweta County Water and Sewage Authority. The only thing is you are getting some benefit of the mixing with some open valves, but the authority's demands don't go down Griffin. And the integrated system, I'm gonna call it that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. Because your population is still projected to go up a little bit. But if you, again, I would be interested to look back, if we look back historically though, with the water fixtures, if it has gone down.
It absolutely has.
It has, yeah.
To put in perspective, older subdivisions are around 200 gallons a day per home. Grayson Park, Sun City Peachtree, Sun City Peachtree, with it not being a traditional single-family residential development, our single-family residential homes are around 150. So if you look at the Upper Flint watersheds recommendation, they're showing a budgetary number that we, as water providers, should kind of look for is around 142 gallons per day per home. So you can see that the water conservation fixtures have helped.
Water saving faucets is
That's right.
costing us money. Okay, we're on board.
Yeah, there's a really great story about it in Boston. They had a $500 million plant expansion on their books, and they were gonna do it, and then they just took $50 million and spent it on water conservation stuff inside of the city, and it actually brought down their demands by like 300 MPD. It was something absurd number, and it saved them basically $500 million. Kind of this stuff's actually been pretty effective. So I'm not like a naturally trusting person, so when they come in and say all that stuff, I'm always like, oh yeah, okay. But the numbers have bared it out. All right, so then, with Joseph, we established three things. We need to have something that guides us as we analyze this. It's a lot of pipes, going in a lot of different directions. So, the three things we did is growth, and that really is in the form of this industrial, commercial style growth. We did look at the residential corridors, look at your comprehensive. The other one is resiliency, so if a pipe goes down so that you're not on the news for a long time, like how is the water looping around? Are the pressures being stabilized for longer periods of time? And then the last one's fire flow. So with that, it's can you provide fire flow to new areas, in existing areas? Is it a problem to put out fires because that can affect insurance rates across your community? So those are really our three things. And fire flow is really based off a static pressure with residual pressure and then a flow rate. And what that means is that when the fire truck hooks up to the pipe and they start pulling the water out, will water keep coming, right? Or are you sucking it dry? And so that's really, we can talk more about that as we look at the project specifically, but that's really what's going on in those areas. All right, so we develop projects based on the existing system performance and projected growth throughout the quarter. So the first two projects are G1 and G2, and G stands for growth. So if we're looking at your specialists. And in front of you, they have the handouts. Oh my gosh. We have handouts. Do you want to hand them out? Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. So those, I'll point while she's getting the handouts. So you've got G1 and G2 in these areas. And those are smaller pipes, but if you're thinking about your system, you want to think about like the core, you're getting it out to your loop. The loop is running out, so you've got to get it out to the loop. The more different ways that you can get the water out to the loop, it's called parallel flow path. You basically split the flow rates, which then increases or decreases the amount of loss of energy that you have inside of your system. So you want to get it out to the loop in more different ways. And so in order to serve this corridor, you want to split it in between all the pipes you already have. Basically leveraging your already existing assets inside of the ground more effectively and efficiently. And so that's what really those two projects are, is to get the water out to the loop. And they are your shorter range projects in order to provide that. Anything else you want to add there?
That's it. I'm glad I didn't hand those out because they have the costs. So now we
Oh,
had
yeah.
your attention the whole time, which
See,
is great.
I'm always telling everybody in the office, just give them the thing at the end and then we'll explain it later. Engineers want to explain everything and then show you the thing, so you believe us. It's really, you should show them the thing and then we'll try to convince you that we're not full of it. All right, so has everybody got your handouts? You got the costs. So we're looking at G1 and G2 up at the top there. Those are the two that we just did that are getting the water out of the center corridor, leveraging your existing assets in the ground to get you to the loop. All right.
I'll also add both of these existing pipes are 6-inch. So those are really limiting your flow right now. That's why they're the first two projects. They're a little bit more urgent than the other ones that we'll present.
Yeah, this is something all across the state. So 6-inch was very commonly used all the time. Your development regs don't even allow it to be using more than that, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, 8 inches required. And that goes back to that fire flow that I was talking about. If you hook up the fire truck and you start pumping, an 8-inch will keep supplying. The 6-inch is a losing game. Just the whole time it's gonna start falling off. So I wish I'm laughing about one of our other clients. They have a warehouse full of 6-inch, and I'm trying to get them to burn it, to sell it, get rid of it. But they're just going to kind of keep it. So I just recommend that to everywhere. Just don't, when you find a 6, just go ahead and upsize it to an 8. You'll save in long term, especially if there's some sort of emergency. Okay, cool. Sorry. So then now we have G3 and then G4. G3 is basically the same thing as far as getting it out to the loop. It's just focusing on that southeast corridor to get it out to the loop. Anything additional on that one? All right, and then G4 is another 6-inch going northward. That's whenever we're trying to get that water to that Heron Bay corridor of your county. That's the first phase of it. And then the second one is a G4 Part 2. That's just getting it all the way up to Heron Bay. And then the next one is G5. And so here's what's happening inside of your model. It's actually, I find it that this is very important. So The water comes out of the city, and then it goes here and goes up with part one, and part two. But then eventually, as your demands even get higher and higher in Heron Bay, you need to start moving water from the north corridor back to the east in order to split that flow even more. And so inside of the model, as we're running it, you can see the head losses, which is energy loss, by the way. When you think of head loss, you should think of it as energy loss. You're paying money to take water and pump it to elevation. And that energy, a lot of times, is coming from a dam that is dropping water down and then generating power, moving electrons to that motor, and then shooting it back up. So anytime you have head loss in your system that's not efficient, you're really burning energy, is really what you're doing. So what's neat is that as we move the water from the north back to the east and then come back in, everything kind of settles out in that northeastern corridor. So that's why we're moving water up with G4, part 1 and 2, and then eventually the demands outrun that, and then now we've got to move water from the north back to the east as well. Make sense? Kind of neat, maybe? All right, R. So these are your resilience. This would be the completion of the loop. So you have one little bitty piece of the loop left that isn't fully built out. And it does have some limitations in that area as the area grows, specifically getting the water back up to the north corridor where there's more people. And then R2 is down on the south side, very similar, 6-inch pipe, and that allows for, along with the next project, to supply more water to that Zebulon south of the county area, potential, wholesale growth, wholesale customer growth there. And then F1 is what I was talking about with the supply for the fire flow residual. Because there's a good bit of houses and residents close in that area, that one goes up on our list for providing fire flow. Upsizing that from a 6-inch will allow you to provide more water in an emergency. And then F2. There it is, over there on the right side. Oh my gosh, Cheehaw Road. I like the name of that road. I'm a Dallas, Georgia kid, long term. Cheehaw reminds me of some roads up where I'm from. But Cheehaw Road, same thing. Just a 6-inch area over there that is limited by fire flow. There's multiple demands over there. C1. All right, so this is the big one. One of the big ones. This is to get that water over to Bucks County. It is actually, as we looked at it and started cost estimating it, doing it now before it gets built out is going to save you a significant amount of money because of the fact that once it's more like the next one, C2, up near 41 where things are built out a little bit more, it makes the construction a lot easier. So C1 is about getting the water to that corridor and just basically the 75 corridors, how I like to think about it. And then C2 would really provide water up in that entire area. And it actually does provide you that added benefit of getting the water to Heron Bay on that eastern route as well. So that's the grouping of projects. And so this is what they look like in a list. Who here took in class significant figures? You remember like that stuff and 2 decimal places carry the 1 and on. So these are engineering level, planning level numbers. I always, when I see things down to cents in 50-year capital planning, I don't trust it as much. These are high level costs, right? Things change over time. And we did put inside of some future slides the future costs for some of these things, but they're not that conservative. We have to be some degree of right. We don't want to just throw things out, but there is a little bit on there that hopefully will provide a little bit of buffer for each of these projects.
27 million.
Over 50 years. 25 years.
25 years.
We also assign them back to the drivers to bring those back in. You can see a lot of them accomplish multiple goals, which is really nice. And then a couple of the strategic corridors and then the Zebulon are kind of the one goal in mind. But for the most part, we tried to overlap your goals as much as we could to save on cost and effort.
And then we combine the project into a preliminary CIP through 2050. And so the first one is the 5-year process, and what is in parentheses there is the 5-year present cost evaluation using a 6% inflation rate. And that really is that High Falls to McIntosh in order to get more water into those loops and get rid of a couple of those 6 inches that are significant bottlenecks. The next is on the 10-year horizon, and you can start to see that spread starting to develop. But interestingly enough, it's the exact same future cost number because you're looking at a 10-year, even though it's $1 million or $700,000, $800,000 less, $700,000 less. And that's G3, the Rehoboth Road, and then the first part of that McDonough going north. And then the 20-year is the part 2 going up to McDonough, and then G5 and Simmon Road to get the water moving from north back to east to get to Heron Bay. And then we broke out opportunistic projects. These are projects that as development is going in, that you can be strategic about and increase the resiliency of your system in its current state. And then lastly are those strategic corridor numbers. So if you took out, it is $27 million, but really, it's really the top 3 are the ones that really in your system in its current state that we would recommend. And then the bottom set are more of opportunistic and then strategic investment. So specifically C1 and C2, this is where we, or yourselves with what we've already provided, can negotiate with people potentially coming in. You have an understanding of what it actually will do to your system in order to make good business decisions or community decisions in this case, right? And so you're loaded up with that answer. And this is to go all the way to the end of the corridors, and this is also to provide the 3 and 5 NGD of supply. So you can ratchet your pipe size up and down based off that link in order to fit correctly for whatever you want to do for your community. And with that, do you have any questions? Sir.
Joseph. McDonough Road and 155. I know we had discussed in the past of that may be getting paid for by the DOT or at least part of it.
So preliminarily, GDOT is looking at redesignating part of that road as the bypass. So extending 155 down all the way to 16. Here's the the interesting fact that they reached out to us about a month ago and asked, are we the same entity as Spalding County? Well, we are not. We are the Spalding County Water Authority. GDOT said, well, if you were Spalding County, we would pay for that if they purchased the right of way. The fact that we are our own entity, they said we would probably have to apply for reimbursement, but they can't guarantee it.
Okay. So that's a question mark right now?
That is a question mark, yes. But
Say that again.
so Spalding County Water Authority and Spalding County are 2 different entities. If we were a component and we fell under Spalding County's umbrella, where they directed us, we were owned and operated by the BOC. When GDOT purchases the right of way from Spalding County, they would be forced to relocate the water main as part of that agreement. Because we are our own entity, we are permitted separately, meaning Spalding County gave us the ability to go in the right of way. And we would be responsible to move our water main in the event that the road changed, the geometry changed.
So I guess the reason I asked that question is because, and I don't know, and that's why I'm saying this, is that the 155 project is a Spalding County project. So.
But it's going to be GDOT's going to purchase it from Spalding County. It's North McDonough Road is actually a county road.
Okay, right.
So when they go and extend it and they widen it, it's now going to become a state route. And the state's actually gonna purchase or come up with an agreement to actually receive it from Spalding County. That means if
We get left with the tab.
we would get left with a tab.
I mean, see, I'm not understanding why we would be responsible to pay for having to move our utilities because the state or Spalding County is doing something.
Because what happens is when Comcast, we're no different than Comcast or AT&T or Atlanta Gas Light. We are a private utility, well, a public utility that goes within a right of way, and the state and counties both look at it of, hey, if you want to go in our right of way, we'll let you do it, but you're responsible if we ever widen it, we ever change the geometry, we want to change it from a 35 mile an hour to a 45 mile an hour road. You are responsible for any future upgrades or movement, relocation services, because we can change our road anytime we want. It is an agreement that we sign at the time of permitting. That's why when we were looking at the Flint River water main relocation, we
Bought right away.
bought right away and we're outside. So any new project that comes to the board, we'll have an option of, hey, this is what it would cost going in right away. This is what it would cost going out of right away, where we purchase the easement ourselves. But what we have found is, working with Stephanie's team, the water authority went and purchased a lot of offsite easements when we originally started putting in water mains. So our GIS team is currently updating our GIS line work to actually show and attach easements where I can't tell you some of this road. We don't have water mains in a private easement. If we own the private easement and GDOT takes our private easement from us, they are responsible for reimbursing that cost, just like they did with the Flint River. We got roughly $400,000 back.
So we may be better off than we think we are.
We may be, yes. Just worst case scenario, you're looking at, it's a significant chunk of money. But that project is not looking to come to fruition until 2035. So we have time to plan.
Next question. The Georgia 16 improvements. I know Butts County's running out of capacity with all the data centers coming into this. Is that still looking like they're gonna pay for that line for?
So we have been in talks with Butts County and a private developer inside River Park. They are anxiously awaiting this figure because this project may actually be paid for by other funds. So when Ben was talking about project specific or opportunistic projects, this is one that we could leverage if Butts County Water Authority needs the water, and it would save them from having to upgrade their water treatment plant to the tune of $40-60 million. $6.4 million looks really attractive. So we are starting to arm ourselves with the information where now we can have these discussions, and we're not just sitting there saying, well, we don't know what we need or what we can do.
Well, we have the potential to knock 9 to 10 million off this bill.
Correct. And the 1941 corridor, if there is a strategic growth opportunity for say there's a data center or a big development that wants to come between the city limits and the county line,
Capacity cost.
this can be leveraged as a project development cost, because one thing the Garver team is going to help us understand is a flow trigger. If we get a demand that exceeds X gallons per day, this project is going to have to be required. So now we may only be burdened with a portion of this cost.
Is there any other low hanging fruit I'm missing here?
No, but I will tell you, so y'all know that Parker's trying to study for his fundamentals exam. If he passes the fundamentals exam, there are some projects that we will actually design in-house, which
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to. So some of the low-hanging fruit, like the Vaughn Road loop, that little section of pipe, Cheehaw Road, the smaller projects, we can, with staffing, more than just me, we would be able to take on some of these projects in-house.
I look at Garver's presentation, G1 through 5 is what you listed as priority, correct?
For the residential road.
Which is where you county commissioners help me, isn't that where most of the residential permits are being issued?
Northeast.
So G1 through 5, is their recommended priority for us. Right?
Correct. High Falls and South McDonough, that looks like it would kind of dovetail into the High Falls industrial development, which, I mean, now that we have these numbers, we can have these discussions preliminarily when people come in and want to start talking about future projects. But at some point, this High Falls is 6th Street to South McDonough. That 6 inch is going to have to be taken out, which could dive into a CDBG grant because that was part of the East Griffin area that we looked at. So there's a bunch of synergies that we can kind of leverage going forward.
As I look at this, the developed estimated cost, I get that the concerns that they've shared with us are based on fire flow growth and resilience, but fire flow is not really on us.
That's correct. You're absolutely right.
That's Spalding County. And so, as I look at these, and growth is not really on us. Maybe growth of our system, but, you know, how is that really being defined when we're talking about that? So, I'm saying all that to say, as partners with Spalding County, the cost focus for making several of these things happen should not be the full burden of the water authority. Because, I mean, while it may grow our system, if it provides fire flow, and decrease ISO, or, what's that got to do with it?
So to piggyback on that statement, working with the Garver team is going to be a long-term relationship, in my opinion. So what they were tasked with was updating the water model to show us, kind of say, hey, this is where you stand. This is what we would recommend you do in order to stay consistent with the county's growth plan. But what we're going to try to do is be able to answer that question of, okay, we're not mandated by the state of Georgia to provide fire flow. That is a local mandate. What is the incremental cost? We need a 10-inch pipe to support the growth. In order to satisfy fire flow, you need a 16-inch pipe. Now we can then have that conversation saying, this is all we need. Spalding County Board of Commissioners, the fire tax district, do you want to support fire development, fire flow in this area? If so, this is the project. This is the incremental cost that we're going to ask for you to pay for. So when I start talking about we're getting the tools, we're definitely getting the tools and getting armed with the information to be able to have these conversations, because we're mandated to provide safe drinking water at a minimum pressure. That's it. We've satisfied that. We provide great water at the minimum pressure.
Any other questions?
But I will say, working with the Garver team, what you're looking at, this was not a small lift. What was requested of them in a short amount of time was monumental. And the fact that they have gotten us to a point today with this CIP, if y'all are good with these projects, I'm rolling into a meeting with our rate consultant this afternoon where we're going to be sitting in great position to present both the final report of the water model and the preliminary report for the rate study in the first couple of weeks of December. So
Well, we had to have a starting point. We got a starting point. Some of this may be determined, you know, if something may be booming right now, that doesn't mean it's gonna be booming next week. It's gonna change over time, but we had to have a clue. Now we have a clue. Now we can start planning around it.
but what you're looking at, these costs, we will be able to move cost in and out of our rate forecast as the board sees fit. So we will have the flexibility if we say things aren't developing like we thought, let's kick it out, we'll be able to kick it out. So I'm really excited about the tools that we'll have at our disposal, where you guys will be armed with the information you need to make great decisions.
I appreciate the report. I understood at least 30% of it.
Well, I will tell you, Ben's a former teacher. He did teach at Southern Poly, back when it was Southern Poly Tech, so he loves to teach.
I'm at 28%. Does our contract with the city play into this?
Absolutely will. So the Zebulon,
Is Garvey aware of our contract and all the intricacies of?
That's right.
what it
I would
They
say all the intricacies, but
I mean, but it sounds like some of these plans talk about us selling water.
Yeah.
some of it is to support the wholesale growth. So now we're starting to get to the conversation where our current wholesale agreement with the city of Griffin says they can sell water to whoever as long as capacity exists. We're starting to be able to define that capacity. Well, capacity, if our ratepayers and the Spalding County Board of Commissioners with the fire tax have paid for X gallons of fire flow capability, well, now we'll be able to put metrics on there saying, we will not allow you to sell more than X gallons a minute at this location. If you want more, hey, these are the projects you're gonna have to put in. Because that will support your wholesale connection. So this will be we'll start refining. This has given us a starting point, but one thing, I've already, Ben and I are gonna have a call in the first part of 2025 where we're gonna start talking, how can we take this to the next step? So I look forward to reporting back.
Thank you all again, appreciate it. And I would say too, with the model, we're also training Parker, on the model. So, you know, for things like that, we don't do business by having stuff and then holding it back. Everything is y'all's. We work for this community. I'm a seventh generation Dallas Georgia kid. I knew better with the traffic this morning. I do have young children. I just wanted to say again, from the depth of my heart, I'm very sorry to be running in like that. Adela has absolutely worked her tail off for you, along with other people back in the office. So look forward to if you need it in the future, introducing more of our team. We love this place. This is our home. We're just here to support it and your goals and your ambitions for your community. So thank you again. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
Appreciate the presentation, it was great, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item, I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Got a motion by Mr. Davis, second by Wanda. All in favor, please raise your hand. We got 8. That's right, Dixon right here. 8-0. Moving on to citizen comments.
We do have one.
Okay, well, let me read the citizen comments. Speakers must sign up prior to the meeting and provide their names, address, and the topic they wish to discuss. Speakers must direct your remarks to the authority and not to individual members or to the audience. Personal disagreements with individual members or county employees are not a matter of public concern, and personal attacks will not be tolerated. The chairman has the right to limit your comments in the interest of disposing of the authority's business in an efficient and respectable manner. Speakers will be allotted 3 minutes to speak on their chosen topics as they relate to matters pertinent to the jurisdiction of the authority. No questions will be asked of any of the members during citizen comments. Outbursts from the audience will not be tolerated. Common courtesy and civility are expected at all times during the meeting. No speaker will be permitted to speak more than 3 minutes or more than once unless the authority votes to suspend this rule. And our speaker is?
May McCray.
Morning.
Ms. McCray?
Yeah, I'm the president of the Homeowners Association at Pine Tree Hills, a community. And I think this is the second time that, since I've been living out there, that we had a survey trying to get sewage over in our area. And there are a lot of people that need sewage. I walk all the time and I could go by people's homes and, you can smell their septic tank. And so, at some point, septic tank ain't gonna last forever. And, and it's gonna overflow into we got a lot of low area, we got a lot of streams in our area, and the streams are running somewhere, I don't know where. But we need a septic system. We need so that we will be, be helped, so that we can maintain a healthy environment in our community. And, we would just like to know, since we've done grants twice, how is this grant thing going and how it, it's going to affect us in our community.
That's all you got, ma'am?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the minutes. Consider approval of the October 16th, 2024 regular scheduled meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman, if no one has a problem with me, making a motion to approve minutes 1 and 2, I will make a motion to approve items 1 and 2, the minutes from the October 16th, 2024 meeting, and minutes from the joint planning meeting on November 13th, 2024. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Unanimous. So voted by Flowers. Next item, General Manager Report. Consider acceptance of the General Manager Report as presented by General Manager Johnson.
So fiscal year to date, we've added 123 new customers, which is a growth of about 1.8%. So we're hanging close to that 2% mark. The total bill revenue is a little over $4.2 million. One thing that you're gonna see going forward is there's a difference between the total billed revenue and the total revenue received. We're starting to work through our delinquent accounts. So I'll update you. This report will start getting modified going forward. But right now, that is the billed revenue, assuming everybody paid their bills. So looking at the water sales, we've sold roughly 345 million gallons of water, which we're definitely selling more water than we budgeted. And going to meter sales summary, we're still holding around the 33 meter deficit on where we think we should be, but we've collected roughly $96,000 in meter revenue. And then the fire hydrant maintenance report, this is just we haven't done any fire hydrant maintenance since July, since we met our goal. Moving on to the projects, couple things to note.
Joseph.
Yes, ma'am.
So when will fire hydrant maintenance begin again?
So we're gearing up for, we'll probably start in March of next year. So now that we've figured out that we can touch out every hydrant within the 24 or 12 month cycle, now what we're going to do is get really strategic on when we do it. So we're not going to do it in cold weather, and we're not going to do it in high demands. So we're probably looking at bracketing early spring and early fall to do it, where we're not going to tax the water system.
Okay.
So we're being armed with the information where now we can sit as a team and really start getting specific on. We'll put out notification on our website saying, hey, this is when we're going to be doing fire flow test. If your water gets discolored because of the stuff that we stir up, please flush your fixtures for 5 minutes. So looking at the projects, the only thing the major thing is the lead and copper rule compliance. Communication was sent out on November 15th. And it was a letter that was required by the state mandate for any service that is unknown status, meaning we don't have record of the material that was used on the backside of the meter. We have received, along with the city of Griffin, many calls. So the city of Griffin, I spoke with Brandon yesterday. They're going to put out a press release. We're going to put out the same press release just on our letterhead on our website. That is basically, the letter does not say that your water is contaminated. It just says we don't know your material. We're going to actively work over the next 6 months to really knock down the unknown list, just know that this communication letter is going to have to go out every year until we get that service line status updated, taken from unknown to known. I think our GIS team, I think we have a good process that we can implement. We're working through some intricacies right now where we're trying to merge all the data points that we currently have access and leverage it in GIS, where we can start running some analytics where we can use some predictive analysis to say, you know what, if the fire hydrant was manufactured in 2008, the water line was put in 2004, you know what, we have good understanding of, hey, that water line, and if your house was tied in, it wasn't tied into our water main until it was installed. So now we can start whittling down the unknowns. Right now, there's a little bit over 8,400 unknowns in our system.
I could swear that after I got that letter, the water in my toilet looked browner.
Well,
I'm gonna
Manganese.
just flush it. Is it gonna get clear?
It's-
No, not yet. Not yet.
It's manganese.
No, this
No,
one.
no, I'm being serious.
Yours, Warren?
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, I thought I was imagining it.
Oh, it couldn't have been timed any better.
yeah, so unfortunately, that is a function of the weather changing, where it looks like the reservoir is flipping, where, yeah, iron and manganese are a big problem right now. But Charlie's done a great job. She's fielded a little over 75 calls in the last 48 hours. And she's talking to every one of them. And one thing that is really neat with the tool that Chris developed for us, when you scan that QR code, you're actually going to come to a survey. Well, when you input that information, it will automatically be updated on our GIS system. So as people fill out the survey, they are taking their status from unknown to known, just like that. And then they will never have another communication from us unless there is something that prompts us to say, hey, you know what, we need you to focus on this replacement, but we don't have lead in our system. I feel confident on that. But just know the press release is going to come out. The water model update, you saw the presentation today. We will be moving into the final report and the model handoff in December. And then the water rate study, we are on schedule to have that completed the 1st of December. So it looks like we're going to be in good timing for our water rate, our wholesale rate from the city of Griffin, because the city has indicated to me they intend to have their audit completed and the wholesale letter to us before the end of the year, which the new rate will go into effect January 1.
So you need something else to do now.
You know what, yeah, you could say that.
Anything else, buddy?
That's it.
Do I have a motion to accept the general manager's report?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Okay, who motioned?
Yeah.
Jeff and Clay? All in favor, please raise your hand. Somebody tackle Miss Fanny, she's trying to sneak out again. Next item, special committee report. Joint Planning Finance Committee report, Mr. Davis.
On 9 October, the Joint Planning and Finance Committee meeting was held. We discussed two items. First, we discussed the water rate analysis. Ralph Tillis discussed the Water Authority financial plan and our rate study. The second thing was a discussion of the progressive design build guaranteed maximum price. A consensus was reached recommending approval to obligate the remaining about $2 million in ARPA funds for Phase 2A of the progressive design build.
Like, that's actually the meeting before, not your last one.
Wrong one.
Oh, excuse me.
Get him, Cal. You was in there too.
Well, that's why I was doing this. That didn't sound like the meeting I was in.
Yep, that is right. That we talked about the
First of all, two sewer projects. Pine Tree Hills and East Griffin.
yes.
And we looked at the funding, the cost, the potential cost, and what the potential remedies would be. recommendation was, Pine Tree Hills, potentially, low-pressure sewer system, and for East Griffin, a traditional sewer system.
Okay, let me try this again. Thank you, Charlie. On November 13th, 2024, the joint committee meeting was held to discuss the following. One, sewer options and costs for each of the three CDBG target areas. Zone 1, Dundee Mills, Phase 3. No information was provided at that time. Zone 2, Pine Tree Hills, traditional sewer option, $5.3 million. Low pressure sewer option, $3.9 million. Zone 3, East Griffin, traditional sewer option, $4.8 million. The second item discussed was the existing Minerva, Spalding County and Water Authority contract agreement. General Manager provided us an update. Then we discussed the Water Authority's telecommunication policy. A consensus was reached that until the workers' compensation questions were answered, we couldn't recommend approval. The last item was commercial office space for the Water Authority. The consensus was reached directing the general manager to begin speaking with counterparts to determine what type of space we need and how much land that will require. The committee feels that there are several options for acquiring land without purchasing any additional land. That's our report. And sorry about the, had flipped to the wrong page.
We don't need an emotion on that, do we, Stephanie? Moving on to new business. Consider approval of the MOU between Spalding County and the Spalding County Water Authority. It is my understanding that Spalding County has already approved the MOU, is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes, someone's already signed it.
Yes.
So did Spalding County approve it with any changes to what we sent to them?
They did. The changes that were recommended were, we always knew it was gonna be a pretty touchy subject when we put information in an MOU that said the county shall do something if the water authority requests it. One thing that they asked was, if this truly is a partnership, you really can't make us do anything that we don't want to do. So we added a sentence in paragraph 8 that talks about if we truly are partners and the project is approved by the BOC in accordance with the growth plan as laid out in the comprehensive plan, then yes, they have no problem being a cosigner for any debt. But it's pertinent on us to show that the project is valid. It's it's cohesive with their comp plan and their growth strategy. And obviously, the water authority, we're not just going to go out on our own to put pipes to nowhere if it's not going to pay for itself. So I felt that was a valid request. But I believe this document truly solidifies the partnership between the Board of Commissioners and the Spalding County Water Authority going forward. And it was a long time coming. I think Ms. Gwen can attest to this, where it was not easy. It was many long meetings, but I think this is a great first step.
This is a document that we asked for, we initiated, and the county has agreed. I can read this paragraph if anybody would like for me to read it. I don't see anything
It's
wrong
on the
with it
screen
personally. Yeah, I can't read that.
in front of you.
So
I can see this better.
If there is no other discussion, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the MOU between Spalding County and the Spalding County Water Authority.
Well, a motion approved by Ms. Flower. Do I have a second? Got a second by Mr. Davis. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? And we're down to 7, correct? All right, the next item under new business is consider approval of the Spalding County Water Authority telecommuting policy and procedures. I know that we had some questions. I'm assuming those questions have been answered.
Correct. We received notification from HR that they put this policy to workman's comp, and workman's comp said this checks all the boxes. So there's no issue on their side. So it's ready to go.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Spalding County Water Authority telecommuting policy and procedure.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second from Mr. Davis? Any further discussion? You're good with it?
Yes.
All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Unanimous, 7-0. Moving on to other business, the next regular scheduled meeting will be held on Wednesday, December 18th, 2024 at 8:30 a.m. in the Courthouse Annex Meeting Room. And we are going to be having that meeting, correct? We're going to have that meeting, I believe.
Yes.
I know I was asked about if it was going to be canceled or not, but no, we're going to have that meeting.
Can we have it another day? It's getting mighty close to the
Yeah,
holiday.
I know. It's kind of always a.
One of the reasons why we need that meeting in December is if we're going to have the water rate ready to go and the city of Griffin gives us their rate and is ready to go January 1, we need to have you guys vote on any water rate increases.
What about when will we be voting on the allocation of the rest of the ARPA funds? Because aren't we supposed to have
We did that,
found the place where
we
y'all
did that
already?
last
They-
meeting.
Okay.
They've
okay.
already been obligated,
So
so-
we're good.
Yep.
With having obligated.
There is some more discussion on that, and the price may be coming down some more.
Okay, but the thing is.
But the
we have
obligation-
Obligated.
Yes,
to
ma'am.
spend
We-
those
we-
as per how the ARPA.
We met the rules that we needed to meet, yes.
Okay. All right.
So maybe what I can do is if the date's gonna change of the meeting, that's fine, but I will update, the board if the city of Griffin's not gonna provide their water rate, maybe y'all can, maybe the meeting's not necessary. But I'll keep you posted on
Yeah,
that.
just let me, I don't wanna miss any deadlines or
Oh,
anything.
no, if it means that we're not gonna be on track.
We may be talking about that sewer plant. We have about 75% committed funding.
Okay, you only need 6.
But we're also doing some, what's that term, value engineering, I guess? I don't know if that's really the term we're doing. Looking at things a little different way to try to get the price down a little bit more.
So 18th.
Yes.
All right.
Moving on to Secretary Cal, did you,
I just had a question. Do you anticipate a need for a planning and finance committee the week before?
I'm thinking so because, we're probably going to need to get the planning and finance committee to agree upon the water rate model.
I think you'll have it by then.
I do. I'll know, I have a meeting with Joe this afternoon at 1 o'clock to look at the, capital forecast.
So you anticipate that to be the only item of business?
Yes, so, I'm thinking I don't think December 4th, I think we're gonna need to combine the planning and finance committee for December 11th.
Yeah,
I'm good, it's on my calendar.
I just want to put it
Yeah.
on. The
Yes.
4th is kind of out for me.
Correct, yeah, the 4th, I think we may be fine tuning, so I would say I'd feel more confident with the 11th.
Fourth is out for me too.
Down at the-
Yeah, fourth is out for me.
Okay.
All right.
we're almost there. We almost got it. Any other questions? Secretary Treasurer comments.
None.
General Manager comments.
Yes, we have been, so P&K, a development that is going in adjacent to the Lakes of Green Valley on South McDonough Road. They submitted preliminary plans showing that they were gonna tie into the city of Griffin sewer and use the Lakes of Green Valley's capacity. We said timeout, that's our sewer service area. Based on our board's, based on my understanding of what our board is looking for,
I
we're
threw my
not,
sucker down.
we're not looking to give up any service area. So they requested a meeting. The meeting will happen on Friday to look at options. Well, options are we going to allow them to tie into the Lakes of Green Valley, or are we going to require them to get to our system? Well, since our system's in flux, what we've done is we've reached out to the city of Griffin, and we're trying to draft a sewer wholesale agreement document that will allow kind of like a stopgap to allow these developments, because if I don't think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe the Water Authority's board is looking to stifle development. I think we're looking to complement, but complement it in a smart growth plan that meets our objectives. So after preliminarily talking to Brandon, I think a sewer wholesale contract is, or an IGA is on the table. So we're meeting with the developer on Friday, needing to understand what they're needing flow-wise, that we can potentially provide some options. Ultimately, that parcel goes to our plant, future plant. But when is the future plant going to get built? I don't know. So
Spec development, or they got actual customers?
he's saying that he has actual customers, and he has to have the building up by the end of 2025. So if we gave our contractor, if we found funding and told our contractor to go, we could be ready to turn on our plant for quarter one of 2026. But the longer this thing plays out, it's going to take us roughly 16 to 18 months to build. I believe that quarter one of 2026 was a conservative. I think we can do it faster, but we need a finite amount of flow day one to turn on. If we allow all these developers to kind of do these offshoots, it's going to hurt us in the long
It
run.
undermines our ability to do it, period.
So would this be a stopgap, or?
It would be. So one thing I've looked at is I went back to our sewer feasibility study, which was kind of the strategy, right? Showing how these legs would develop out. My thought is, as long as the developer puts in the infrastructure that was warranted in the feasibility study, we already showed a lift station was going to need to be there to support this area. We understand if they pump it back to the city of Griffin, we've lost out on that force main, because we're going to have to add a force main to get it going to the east. But the majority, 90% of the infrastructure is usable. So the meeting Friday is going to be to understand what their needs, what their wants, what they're willing to concede on, what they're not. I don't think we're going to concede on allowing them to put infrastructure in that supports them and only them. As long as it's in tune with our feasibility study, it makes no difference to me if it's pumped temporarily to the city of Griffin or to us. But one thing that I'm going to make very clear to him at that time, whatever capacity cost recovery fee you were going to pay to the Industrial Development Authority, you're not paying that to them, you're going to pay it to us. Because you are our customer, we're responsible for that. So because we don't have a capacity cost recovery fee model set up, because we don't even know what our costs are going to be, I would think it would be easy to say, whatever you were going to pay them, you pay us, because our capacity fee is going to be built into our wholesale rate.
So you're saying that the individual who says they're using the IDA sewer capacity that's in the industrial part, that they'll have to pay them?
Well-
Because they've already paid for the capacity, right?
Well,
The Development Authority has paid the city of Griffin for the capacity already, long time ago.
Right, we gave them the money to pay them.
well, the city of Griffin is saying that was for the Lakes of Green Valley. This is outside the Lakes of Green Valley, and the city of Griffin saying, no, you're
So,
gonna pay.
that is
you're
my
gonna
thing,
pay.
you're outside of
Yeah.
the Lakes of Green Valley where your capacity was designated for.
That is an issue between the city, and the developer
Yeah.
currently. And the Development Authority actually, at its last meeting, approved a flow study of its own to determine what the usage is currently inside the Lakes of Green Valley.
They're trying to determine what the excess capacity is.
The city said that they wanted that from the Development Authority, so their board agreed to pay for that study.
But if we're using if we know they spent $5 million for 500,000 gallons of capacity, that's roughly $10 a gallon. Well, if this developer needs 8,000 gallons, just throwing a number out there, that's 80 grand that we can require. And that's kind of the way that I see this thing playing out, where until we get our capacity fee structure set, this is the only way that we can start ensuring that any new customers coming on are putting money aside for capacity in our treatment facility when the time comes to change them over to us.
At the end of the day, it's our service area.
Right. I
The
totally
Development
get that.
Authority volunteered some of our service area to go to their system is the best way I can describe that.
They're hard.
And they shouldn't have done that.
So I think things are starting to heat up on the AKB corridor. So going back to the water model presentation, all it's going to take is for one large customer to come, and we're going to be talking about water tank. We're going to be talking about project upgrades. I mean, it's exciting now that we're arming ourselves with the information where we can say, if this is the development you want, this is what you're going to be required to put in on our side.
But do we need to be looking long-term? We've got roughly an idea of sewer cost, AKB. Do we need to be looking at this additional 6.4 for water flow?
So
Do you like serve a data center or something like that?
Whatever.
Yes.
I mean, what you got an 8-inch line out there now?
right now there's a 12-inch that goes along AKB and stops at High Falls. Yes.
And then 6-inch from there.
No, it stops.
It stops at High Falls.
It connects and goes up Chi Hall, Tamachichi, and then goes to Dollar General, which is a 6.
You need to run, I assume this 6.4 is, running a 12-inch line,
20-inch.
20 inch.
Yes.
So it's gone from 12 to 20.
So here's the kicker, because it is a project specific. It's without the demand,
Depends on the customer.
this water line would do more damage to our system. We would have to put way more water on the ground in order to keep it cycling. It would harm us really bad. So those disinfection byproducts, the water age, everything would not look good. So depending on the demand of the customer, that's when we're going to say, hey, this is what you need to support this.
But you would continue on with a 12-inch line if you had somebody that wanted to go east of High Falls?
It would depend on the demand that they wanted. So if it's not a data center, and say Butts County Water Authority doesn't need a certain flow, then yes, that 20-inch main was assuming you have a large customer, i.e. a data center, and data centers right now are looking at 2.4 million gallons a day in the peak demand. Just to put it in perspective, that is our entire average day demand of our customer base, 15,500 customers.
One data center.
One data center. And that demand could be needed today. It won't be needed tomorrow, because as soon as the temperature drops below a certain threshold, they turn off the water cooled and then they just let air cool it. Because if you're using ambient temperature, it's a whole lot cheaper than using water to cool it, right? So it's completely temperature dependent. So in the winter months, they're not using any water. In the summer months, they're not using any water or a small amount of water until the temperature gets above a certain threshold. So data centers, from a water utility perspective, I would rather them not use our water to cool their system. But then if they're not using water, they're using power. If power costs are exponential, it becomes a fine line you're walking. Do you want the development? Do you want the growth? Do you want the tax revenue, or do you not?
What's that average usage for data centers?
The ones we've been kicking the tires with, 2.4 million gallons a day.
Summertime.
Summertime. Yep.
In winter, almost zero.
Yep. Correct. It's just traditional, typical domestic potable use.
That plays havoc with your.
Absolutely it does.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So, talking about sewer systems, what we've done is, and what we're building into our sewer use ordinance is, if a data center comes, they're going to separate their industrial waste, meaning their blowdown water, from their domestic waste sewage, where now you can send this pretty much really clean brine, because all it is just it's additional salts in the water.
Yeah.
You can send that to some other facility or go direct discharge and let them have an EPD permit with the state, where we're not totally just disrupting and destroying our wastewater plant. But yeah, I mean, it's something that we have to think long and hard on with the use ordinance, making sure that we're protecting ourselves, because
They would be responsible for running a pipe from wherever that facility is to Talladega or wherever we're gonna discharge.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, I just wanted to keep you all abreast of the conversation that's going to happen on Friday, and just to give you an idea of kind of my thoughts, where we'll bring it back once we hear them and we see what they're wanting to do. We'll bring it back and have a future discussion.
You had any conversations about data center? Not
Inside
as
Spalding
opposed to
County?
As opposed to mining centers.
So data centers, yes, the Water Authority, our staff went with the city of Griffin up to a GAWP workshop in Marietta, where we listened to data center owner operator, electric utility, the water side, regulation side. The state doesn't really have any regulations on this. What we're finding is the east part of Spalding County is primed for data center placement, because there is a major transmission line that comes from Plant Vogel that runs right along the east.
Runs through our property, doesn't it?
Do what?
Runs through our property.
It does.
We're putting an $80 million substation down there for this.
So it's primed, and I know the county voted to allow data centers as a acceptable use in a certain zoning, PDD.
Correct.
So things are starting to heat up, and one thing I will say that I learned from that workshop is, if a developer comes in and they say that they've been working with power companies, the first thing that I emailed David Allen, and I told the county manager this: ask for the letter, the will serve letter from the power company, because they're no longer dealing with property speculators. They will have to have a letter from Georgia Power saying, we guarantee you that we can serve you, and this is the power threshold we'll allow. So a lot of these people, we keep hearing talks of, hey, we've secured power. Well, provide the letter, because once you secure power, now we know, are you going to be a power cooling data center, or are you going to be a water cooled? Well, then you have a difference of hyperscalers and non-hyperscalers. Hyperscalers are probably going to be your Amazons, your Alphabets, your Googles, your Metas, where they're using artificial intelligence. I don't know what's coming to Spalding County, if anything. I can just tell you the east part of the county and the AKB corridor seems to be pretty primed because of the major transmission main that comes from Plant Vogel.
We just gotta make sure that our capacity cost recovery fees and the things we charge puts the cost off on the developer, not on our ratepayers. That's what we gotta do, and that's what we'll be doing early into the next year.
And one thing that the rate model is going to provide to us, the water rate, is a capacity fee or an impact fee charge for a developer that is required, because we the water authority customers have prepaid for capacity in these lines. Well, these new projects are going to be taking that capacity, and they need to pay for it.
If these new projects come along, then that's gonna impact the size of the plant we're gonna need to.
Depends on where it goes, yes. But if it's a data center, if we require them to split their flow, and we require them to handle their industrial flow,
It'll be minimum if you just handle that sewer.
that's right. Because to put in perspective, they only return roughly 20% of what they consume. So they evaporate 80% of their water.
Yeah, we don't want them dumping tap water in the sewer plant. We need lumpy water for the sewer plant to work right.
For dog food.
That's right, yeah. I would rather not get back into that business to do that.
You got lumpy water, you got clean water. We need the lumpy water at the sewer plant. We don't need tap water going through there.
That's it.
I mean, the project, the complex project that we're proposing is customer driven.
And customer driven is, in my opinion, is synonymous with, if it's required to serve you, you should be the cost of, you should bear the cost to provide it. Because if we put it in, we were gonna be paying, you were gonna be paying an impact
But
fee or capacity
So
fee.
far, they haven't stepped up to do that.
They were waiting for these numbers. So,
We'll see soon enough.
we will.
Or they can enjoy their pine trees. It always comes down to that.
Well, with the water and the sewer, you're talking $25 million now.
Probably closer to 40. All said and done, if you're talking about this whole
I was
list.
just looking at the part that ties in with, the AKB.
Oh, just that, okay, just that quarter.
Just that.
Yeah, That's about
Yeah, I
roughly
agree, you're talking, no, you're actually talking probably
50.
45 to 50.
Yeah, but just that corridor, realistically, it is probably about, well, we don't know for sure yet, but it's probably gonna be about 25 total between the two. But we'll see.
That's my back of the napkin is about 25.
Which has been pretty good so
Yeah, so far it's worked out pretty good. Any other comments, Mr. General Manager?
None.
Authority member comments, Cal, Clay?
Have we got anybody going off the board this year? January, the Board of Commissioners will be picking and putting people on. If we've got somebody come, and if you remember our conversation earlier, we
December
would like
2025.
to, advise the board.
I think it's
You and Dick and next year.
Dick and I are the ones coming off next year.
Next year, so nobody this year.
I do not believe
Thought
so.
we had one, maybe not.
All right, Charlie, could you, nobody?
I've already checked.
Okay, never mind, thank you. That's all I have, thank you.
Great report and very good, and I love the idea that maybe we can pull other resources and groups for funding some of these things that need to be done so badly, so very encouraging.
Yep.
I was glad to see the results of the water model, and, you know, allows us to move forward with some other things, including the water rate study, so that's progress.
We should have all that done next, you should be hearing about it in December, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good deal. Great work.
That's cool. Nothing, Jim?
Nothing.
No, I ain't got nothing. I'm tapped out.
Okay.
I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved?
Motion? Second? All in favor? Adjourned.